Hi everyone, I'm Autistic Ange. This is a podcast for adults who recently found out they're autistic and are looking for other autistic people like them. So today I am finally doing the family episode. Maybe some of you out there will be able to relate to some of the experiences I had growing up, or, at least the dysfunction of the family that I was in. I don't know, if I knew I was autistic as a kid, I don't know if things would have gotten better for me. Just because, I was isolated. The majority of my childhood was in Japan on a military base. So I never heard the word autistic or anything like that when I was in school, nowhere. So I don't even know if that was something that people were on the lookout for, or were testing kids for. I just really don't think that was going on. When I was growing up, I could be wrong, but, I don't know. And I definitely don't think that things would have improved at home. If you hear that noise, that's the heater. So sorry about that. Also, it's really windy outside, so if you hear that, sorry again. But yeah, if I knew I was autistic, I don't think things at home would have gotten better, just because my parents, just their personalities, and the way things had already been going. I think that if everybody knew I'm autistic, it would have been worse for me at home. So I'll start with my mom. Growing up, she's always been a very critical person. Nothing I did was right. My appearance, there was always something wrong with that. So she would just find different things to be critical about, which definitely did not help the self-esteem thing. And she could be demeaning. She definitely had no patience. She would try to play the role of parent and teach me stuff at home, math, which now I know I have dyscalculia. So that explains why I have never, ever been able to pick up just basic shit. I can add and subtract and multiply and stuff, but I can't do most of that in my head. You know what I mean? Numbers and me don't get along. And so she would try to teach me math, and I wouldn't be able to pick it up very quickly, so she would get pissed. I really think, looking back, even now, I guess, I don't know, but I think that she has borderline personality disorder. I got diagnosed with it. I for sure think that she has it. At least she did when I was growing up. I know when people get older, things can kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say go away, but I've heard that, you get older, things just kind of become less intense. I don't know how true that is. But I had bought this book on borderline mothers, and it was the only book I could find. I didn't even know a book like that existed. It just popped up in something I was searching for. And it was the book has 4 or 5 different descriptions of borderline mothers. You have the witch, you have the waif. I forgot what the other ones were. But she definitely fit the witch description. And it was bizarre because when I was reading that section of the book, it was I was reading all about my mother. This person who wrote this chapter must have known my mother, because it was word for word her personality and the stuff that she did and how she was when I was growing up. So yeah, there's that. And what else? She just was mean. I do have some good memories with my family. It wasn't all wretched, but the majority of it was not fun. And like, my mom was the main parental figure in my life because my dad was active duty military, and he would go, like, on TDYs. I don't think he was ever deployed that I remember. It was usually the temporary, like a couple weeks at a time, sometimes a month at a time, he would leave and come back. So my mom was like the main parental figure. And my dad, looking back, it's like, I don't even think I really knew my dad. Like, he was super passive. He was very avoidant. When my mom would, like, start fights and stuff, he would just walk away. He would not engage, which, I guess that's the good thing to do. But she hated it when she didn't get a reaction and things would escalate. But my dad wasn't really, like, he didn't ground us. He didn't, like, talk with us a lot. He was pretty quiet, and he was always working. Like, he had weird shifts and stuff. So, like, if he had to work overnight, he would sleep during the day, and we wouldn't really get to see him until, like, an hour or two before he had to go back to work. So he wasn't really, like, I had a good relationship with him, but, like, looking back, I really didn't know my dad like I thought I did. And I don't really have anything, like, negative to say about him. I mean, if anything, I wish that he would have had more of a voice and more of, like, an active role in my life. But, and sometimes I would get mad at him because, like, when he would leave for a few weeks here and there, for work, that's when my mom would become just a super bitch, because she was left to take care of 2 kids, my brother and I, and working full time and doing all that. But anyways, so that's them in a nutshell, I guess. Let's see, what else can I say about them? With school, this is mainly about my mother, I guess I should say. Like, my dad, really, I don't have anything really to say about him. I said it all already. My brother is 1.5 years younger than me. I guarantee he's narcissistic, because it just makes sense looking back, like, and then looking back to how he was as a kid and how he was as an adult. When I used to talk to him, he's very narcissistic, and it would make sense because my mother favored him. Like, he could do no wrong. But anyways, so, like, involvement with school, she would be super involved with stuff for my brother, and when it came to being involved with stuff with me, she just didn't seem very enthusiastic about it. It always seems like a chore. Yet she would continue to volunteer for things. I don't know what that was all about. Like, I know she was into, like, appearances and stuff like that, and, keeping up, like, how people perceived her. And she was pretty well known on the base. I mean, the military base was small. But I remember she would volunteer for a lot of, like, classroom activities, especially around the holidays. But she seemed to enjoy that more when it came to my brother's stuff. And speaking of my brother, I mean, being 1.5 years younger than me, he got to drive before I did. Because apparently I was too immature to drive. Like, I don't know. I don't understand what her reasoning was. And he was also the one that was able to have a job before I could. Which is pretty fucked up, because those are privileges reserved for the oldest child to experience first. And I never got to. So, like, a lot of this did lead to resentment of my brother, because he didn't make it any easier either. I mean, like, when I would get yelled at, he'd be standing behind my mother, like, laughing and pointing at me. And sometimes she would catch him doing it, and she never did anything. And so I just felt like I didn't belong in my family. And my mother was pretty good at reinforcing that belief that I had. She didn't want me going places with friends. So she was, I don't know if like helicopter parent was maybe the right term, but she was very, very controlling. And back then we did not have cell phones. So like if you said you were going to a friend's house, you better be there because the home phone was going to be called and you needed to be in the, you know what I mean? Like you had to be where you said you were going to be. And if I wasn't, she'd find out, she'd get pissed. But like she never really wanted me to go hang out with friends. It was very weird. She never had like really serious talks with me. I remember like the birds and the bees discussion involved like some book with pictures. I remember her like sitting with my dad going over that book with us. I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about, so I don't know how helpful that was. But she was not very good at talking about serious or important things. And I say this because like thinking back, what she used to do, because like once I got older and was like a teenager and the hormones kicked in and I was constantly like at odds with my mother, she would have these notebooks. So she would go out, she would get this notebook, she would write down like a feeling or something that she had, and then we would pass it back and forth, and that was like how we communicated when things were like difficult between us. And she got like really into it. She would get like these sticky notes and she would like write something on one and then put another sticky note on top of that and write like secret, like the word secret in these big caps. And I don't know, like, I mean, that's just weird now looking back. I mean, isn't it? I mean, I guess that's an okay way to communicate with your kid, but like, I didn't really learn a healthy way to communicate. It was like, I learned that when there were serious things going on that needed to be talked about, you don't really talk about them. You just write about them and then hide them from other people. I don't fucking know. It was just weird. Excuse me. And I know I have those notebooks up in the attic somewhere. I you know, like, I am curious to, you know, because I haven't seen those since I was a kid. So, those would be interesting to look at, but I'm too lazy to go up to the attic and find them. But yeah, so she never did that with my brother. And I don't understand that other than they never really fought. He was like a mama's boy. He did whatever he was told. He got away with a lot. So I guess she felt like she could communicate better with him. I don't know. Let's see what else. Oh, Girl Scouts. Oh my God. I hated Girl Scouts. I didn't want to do it. Like, no, it just seems stupid to me. No offense to anybody out there who takes pride in like the fact that they were a Girl Scout. Like, I don't mean to be rude, but just, it wasn't for me. Like, but she made me do it. And she also volunteered to be like one of the leaders or something. There was like 2 of them. And she, you know, so, and I don't know why she did that, because she always bitched about having to like take on more stuff and that she was always busy. But she did this to herself. So, oh God, I hated, like, every week we had to go to this building, to our designated Girl Scout room. There was all these other fucking kids that were annoying. We were in our little Girl Scout uniforms doing stupid shit like making bracelets and stuff. And I didn't like any of that. And then like Christmas, we would have to like go around and fucking carol. Like, do Girl Scouts do that? Or were we just like some weird bunch or something? Like, I have no idea. And I just hated it. And so then I got interested in soccer. And I'm surprised that my mom let me explore that. But probably because my brother was interested too. So she figured, what's one more kid? And then I got to where I had to choose between Girl Scouts and soccer because it was like too much. at once to do both, I guess, for her, or, I don't know. So I chose soccer. She let me choose. And then, so I was like, I would like to choose soccer. I don't want to do Girl Scouts anymore. And she got pissed. Like, do you think I was rejecting you or something because you were like the leader in the little troop? And so, I mean, all these different reactions and stuff, like, always, like, they were so confusing as a kid. Like, you give your kid a choice and then the kid makes the choice and you don't like the choice that your kid made. So, like, none of that really made sense to me. Let's see. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Oh, no patience. I think I said that, but she was like the worst with patience. She had none. Like, I had so many questions about just everything, and I understand that, like, it's annoying when a kid's asking, like, so many questions, but it's like she didn't want to answer any of them. Like, anytime I asked a question, she's like, she didn't want to stop and explain something, or, like, why are you asking so many questions? You're being annoying. And it's like, looking back, like, I'm a kid, like, I'm new to the world, like, things are happening. I have questions about them. I want to understand more. And, like, now that I know I'm autistic, makes perfect sense because as an adult, I ask just as many questions, if not more, than other people I know. Like, I'm always asking my wife questions about shit because she knows a lot. And, like, within conversations and stuff, when somebody's trying to explain something that happened, I will interrupt here and there to get more clarification on a detail. So, like, I'm just asking questions all the time. That's never stopped. But, it wasn't it wasn't received very well in my home growing up. Then she would, like, I don't know if, like, a motherly instinct kicked in with her, or if she just felt like, hey, my daughter's at about the age where I should start teaching her different things about life. So one of those things was like, let me teach her how to cook. And we would start, like, doing that. And I realized very quickly, I don't have the patience to measure shit. Like, she was a baker. She's Italian, so she would, like, make a lot of food that required a lot of work. And I did not like that. I was bored with it. And then the measurements and stuff, I already was bad with numbers, so I didn't understand any of that. And it wasn't easy to hide my boredom. And so she picked up on that. And if I would make a mistake with something like a measurement of some sort, she would yell at me for it. And it just became like another shitty experience. So, like, you're trying to teach me how to cook, but, like, I'm not doing it the right way or something. And, like, you turn it into, like, this big, like, negative thing. So that wasn't fun. And that happened with, like, different things here and there where she would try to, like, teach me something, or, like, when I started wearing bras for the first time, it was like nothing was good enough for her. Like, I bring up the bra thing because I remember, like, being in the store and, like, I'm trying to understand, like, what the fuck the numbers mean in the letters. And, like, I just needed to know that. And I just remember she just got so frustrated because I was asking questions about a fucking bra. Like, it's just stuff like that happened on a regular basis. So childhood overall, I would say it was not great. I did not have a good, happy, solid foundation at home. I always felt like I did not belong in the family. Yeah, like, I can't remember ever feeling like I really fit with the family. Because, like, other than my dad, who's very passive about everything, like, it was very obvious my brother and my mother did not like me. And so home life just sucked. Like, not to mention my mom she wasn't good with her emotions. She would yell a lot. Like, she was very unpredictable. And and she was physically abusive too. So there was that, like, she just did not have any control over her fucking feelings. And so, like, I was the brunt of it. And it ended up being like one of those things where, like, she was unpredictable until she wasn't, because I started picking up on, like, her facial expression looks like this now, so that means that's getting ready to happen. Or, like, I would catch the slightest variation in, like, her tone, and that would let me know what was coming. So, like, I became very hypervigilant as a kid, and it just grew as I got older. Like, that never went away. I'm still very hypervigilant. But when I think about, like, autism, a lot of the stuff that I'm reading and learning about makes it sound like a lot of autistic. I mean, at least in my mind, how I'm interpreting it, I could be wrong, but, like, it seems like autistic people, like, a lot of us don't have the ability to, like, pick up on social cues or, like, facial expressions or, like, reading the room kind of thing. And I don't understand that. Like, I know that there are people like that, but it's hard for me to believe that, like, a lot of autistic people are like that. I don't know. I guess I'm saying that because, like, I'm not, and so I assume that there's other people like me, but I have never had any issues picking up on a social cue, a facial expression. I was constantly on the lookout for any sign that somebody was giving me to let me know that, like, hey, they were done with this conversation, or, like, I don't know how to explain it, but, like, I knew when it was time to stop talking to somebody. I knew when somebody was about to get mad. I knew that, like, when someone acted like everything was fine, it was very obvious to me that, like, it wasn't. And it was bizarre to me that other people didn't pick up on the stuff I would notice. But I know I learned that at home because it was like a battle. It was like a battle zone. I don't know. So yeah, once I got good at that stuff, then it made my life a little bit easier, because then, like, once I saw that, like, my mom was about to get really pissed, I would try to say something or distract her so that didn't happen. It was like, a kid shouldn't have to do this stuff. But, like, it makes, like, my special interest is people. I think I've mentioned that before. And I don't know. I know that stems from childhood, but, like, I have always been able to read people. Except for sociopaths. I've come across a couple of them when I used to be a counselor, and they're very good at what they do. Like, they're hard to spot, but, like, like, I can tell, like, it's very obvious to me if somebody should be diagnosed as narcissistic or BPD or histrionic. Like, I know this sounds very, like, I don't know if pretentious is the right word or whatever. Like, I'm not a therapist. I can't diagnose people, but, like, I can just tell. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I will watch trashy, I know this is a tangent, sorry. I will watch, like, trashy, like, shows like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, like, just because I'm so interested in the dynamics between people, like, and how they act, and, like, who's got a personality disorder, and, like, I don't know why, I'm just so interested in that stuff. So yeah, that's never gone away, but anyways, so that was, like, childhood, and then when I turned 18, I still lived in Japan, and you can't really continue living there without, like, their version of a visa or whatever. So I got to stay there for an extra year to try to figure it out, and I got a job at, like, the bakery where my mom worked. But then, like, I figured out, like, the only way I could get out of this family is to go into the military, because that was kind of, like, the only option when you lived overseas. At least in my world it was. A lot of kids took that route in Japan. I mean, if I had grown up in the States, it would probably be very different. But, like, we lived in Japan, I was 18. I did not know what I wanted to do with my life. I just knew I needed to get the fuck out of my family. Like, I needed to leave. Like, that was my only motivation. So I joined the military, even though I did not want to. And that was, oh God. I don't know how I've gotten this far in life, guys. Like, I really don't. I have so many stories, but I'm trying to stay on track with, like, the family thing. So I get into the military, and I get stationed in England. And my parents and my brother are still living in Japan. And after, like, a couple years, my brother ended up going into the military, and he got stationed in the States somewhere. But I was expected every year to come home to visit my parents. And in the military, you got, like, was it 2 weeks or a month? I think it was like a month every year of, like, leave, or, like, which is what they called vacation. So every year, 2 weeks of that would have to go to my parents, because they would want me to come to Japan to visit them. And, you know, that shit was not cheap. It was like a few $1,000s to go from England to Japan and back. And I hated it, because, like, we never did anything. Like, I was just there for 2 weeks, and it wasn't fun for me. And my mother and I would always find something to argue about. It just was not a good time. But I still did it, because that's what I was expected to do. And do you think that my brother had the same obligation? No, he did not. Like, he would stay away for, like, years before he saw them. So I don't understand that. And then, like, I would call from England. Like, I would be aware of the time difference, and I would call to check up with them, see how they're doing. And every fucking time, my mother, you could just tell she was annoyed that I called. And it's like, don't you miss me? Like, I'm your kid. I'm in England. You don't get to see me all the time. You regularly communicate that to me in, like, an email and stuff. But, like, I call you and you always are annoyed that you have to stop what you're doing to talk to me. Like, so there's that. And, you know, it's always her. Like, my dad was fine. Like, he talked like a normal person when I called. He was nice. He asked questions about stuff, you know. After I got out of the military, because I was in for 5 years, after I got out, I moved to New York, which is where they ended up going. And I got my own apartment. I started going to college, and my mom was like a hoverer, or, like, I don't know, the helicopter thing, because she was always in my business. I don't, like, she was always wanting to come over to make sure I had food. Like, she was trying to be a good parent, which that was weird, because she never was like that before. But then it got to the point where it was like she was trying to be controlling. Like, I had, at one point, I was going to 2 different colleges on purpose, and I had 2 part-time jobs. And one of the jobs was at one of the colleges I was going to, and it was like a 9 p.m. to midnight kind of thing. It was like, I was just supervising, like, the game room. It was really an easy job. But she didn't like the fact that, like, I was out until, like, after midnight, and I had to get back up for school the next day at, like, 6. And I can't tell you how many times I would, like, tell her, like, I'm an adult. Like, these are my choices. This is what I want to do. Who gives a fuck what time I come home? Like, and, you know, to make this worse, I don't know why I thought this was a good idea, but, like, at one point, we lived in, like, a building that had 4 apartments, and so my parents were at the bottom, and I was in one of the top ones. So she could see every time I left and when I came back, and, like, I'd be at school, and she would let herself into my apartment and, like, straighten some stuff up, or, like, bring food. And, like, you know, I guess, like, to anybody else, maybe that they would appreciate that, that their parent did that. But, like, to me, I had years of unhealthy and neglectful parenting. And so I didn't want her in my space that I paid rent for. It just felt very invasive, and I already felt like she was like that when I was growing up, because she also used to do things like take my door off of when I was a kid. She would take the door off the fucking hinges so I wouldn't have privacy, like just stupid shit like that. So whenever she became invasive, I got pissed. So things didn't really seem to get better. And, like, she also expected me to call, like, on a daily basis when I was out of the military, like, or to stop by when we lived in the same building. She wanted every day I had to stop by and say hi, and it was like I was being dictated to, and so yeah, and so then what happened... I think I'm really bad with time. I'm pretty sure it was like 7 or 8 years ago. My wife and I were with my parents. We had convinced them to come out and kayak. It was like, I don't know, I think it was like an hour away from where they lived, an hour away from where we lived, because we lived an hour and a half or so away from them, because we had moved out for a new job and stuff. So anyways, like, my mother hated going anywhere. She didn't like going to people's places. She didn't like driving, the hour plus to come see me once in a while when I moved away to Syracuse with my wife. But for whatever reason, she agreed to go kayaking. So we met up at this place, and we all get our own kayaks. And there's this moment where it was just me and my mother, and she was freaking the fuck out in the kayak. Like, she was just very anxious. And I looked right at her and I said, stop being so anxious. And she looked right back at me and she's like, don't tell me how to feel. And it was in that moment, like, this sounds so cheesy, but it was like the light clicked on for me. It was that moment that, like, I felt like everything with her became clear. Because when she said that to me, I immediately thought, well, wait a minute. That's what you've been doing to me my entire life, is telling me how I should and shouldn't feel. And, like, I learned that from her. It took a very long time to get out of that. And I'm not like that anymore. People can feel however the fuck they want to feel. But, like, I was just like her because that's what I learned. And that moment was so life-changing. I don't know how else to describe it, because you guys know I suck at describing things, but it was just like the world slowed down for, like, everything was so crystal clear. My childhood made sense. The relationship I thought I had with my family, I actually thought I had a healthy relationship with my parents until that moment. You know what I mean? Like, things get so normalized when you're growing up, even when they're unhealthy, that, like, you don't think really twice about it. But anyways, like, in that moment, I was like, whoa, everything I thought I knew or believed about growing up and my relationship with, like, my family was wrong. And so we get home, my wife and I get home later that night, and I told her what had happened. And then I started having questions about, like, well, why did my mother treat me like that when I was a kid? I wanted to talk about it. And so I tried broaching the conversation with her on the phone, and I immediately got shut down. And when she hears something she doesn't like, she just shuts you down, and she'll get off the phone. And that's what happened. So, like, I texted, because, like, she taught me how to write to communicate, so that's what I did. And so I sent her this text, and I was like, hey, like, I just have questions about my childhood. Like, there's some things I just want to know some answers to, some stuff that I'm confused about. And I let her know that, like, I'm not accusing you of stuff. I'm not asking questions to make you feel like a shitty parent. I just need clarification on some things that, like, don't quite make sense to me. And it didn't matter what I said. It was like I was attacking her, and I would get these nasty text messages back, and it just like it was just a back and forth. Like it had gotten to the point where I was like, I can't have a relationship with them if they're going to be like this. And I say they because my dad just does whatever she wants. He never really would like think for himself. So like if she said don't talk to her for like a week, my dad would listen to her. Like it was stupid shit like that. That's like one thing I did not respect about him. Like, you know, get a voice of your own, man. But it got, I don't know how to explain it. It feels like it happened in such a short amount of time, and it probably did. But then it was about Christmas. It was around Christmas, you know, like I said, like 7 to 8 years ago, where my mother turned to emailing instead of texting. So she would send me these emails accusing my wife of like, she's a catalyst. She's what's making you like turn against us. It was just like fucking bizarre shit. And like I showed every text and every email to my wife because I'm like, what the fuck? Why is my mother saying this shit to me? And so when she started turning things on my wife, I'm like, this lady is like in fucking delusion land, because my wife has been nothing but good to me. Our entire relationship, she's always done right by me. And so like I had gotten fed up with it, and I sent this like pretty large email back, and I just was very, very matter of fact about things. I was like, look, I can't engage with you like this anymore. This isn't healthy. This feels very toxic. You know, and I explained like, when you're ready to have a conversation like an adult, and have it be like a back and forth, like feel free to reach out to me. But like, until that happens, I'm not going to be talking to you guys anymore. Like, it just was so unhealthy at that point. Like I was so upset on a daily basis. It was messing with my mental health. So yeah, that's the last time I communicated with them, because I never heard anything back. What ended up happening was about a year later, I get a box in the mail, because they still had her address. And she sent me a box with like, just childhood pictures, like, old Christmas ornaments, stuff of mine I had given them, just a box of like unnecessary things, but like it sent the message that we're done with you. You know what I mean? And I didn't communicate. I didn't write back or anything like that. And then like a year or two later, my mother's sister, my aunt, she found me on Facebook, and like, she's like, hey, how are things going? I heard that this and this happened. And I didn't trust my aunt because like her personality was very like my mother's. And I knew that they were like, you know, I knew my mother had asked my aunt to reach out to me because my mother probably wanted to know what the fuck was going on with me. And so I blocked my aunt, and my aunt tried my wife, and my wife just didn't respond to her. And that was the last time I heard from anybody, from my family. And all this time has gone by, and I mean, the first couple of years were very, very rough, because that's when I got into therapy. I started like acting out because I was just having all these feelings that I didn't know what to do with because of all of this. And so the first couple of years, therapy really, really helped me like sort through a lot of shit. It helped me process feelings and emotions in a healthy way and not take them out on people or things. And to this day, like I don't want a relationship with my parents if they ever wanted one. I don't have any regrets about that. I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. I actually feel like this huge burden was lifted the moment I decided I was done with them. And there are not a lot of people that know that, like, I cut my parents out of my life. That's how I look at it. But at the same time, I don't understand how you can carry a child in you. Like, you can carry this baby in you for 9 months and then give birth to it and then raise it and then, spend all this money and parent this little human being. And then you're just willing to, like, you're completely okay with never having contact with that human again. Like, it's weird. I can never imagine having a kid and then, 25, 30 years goes by and then, like, something happens and I never want to see my kid again. Like, I don't get that. I would never feel that way. Like, that child is a part of you. You carried that kid, like, you created that kid. I think am I making sense? I can't wrap my mind around that. How can a parent do that to a kid? I will never, ever understand that. So I don't know how she's doing it. I don't know, like, did she just bury me into, like, the dark recesses of her mind or something? Like, does she have any guilt? Like, I'll never know the answers to these questions. But my life is definitely a hell of a lot better without my family in it. My brother, too. My brother turned against me because my mom is the type that if she don't like somebody, she will rally the whole fucking family against that person and ostracize them. And they'll all get right behind her. I don't get it. But like I was saying, not very many people know that I did that. And some of them have judged me for it. Like, how can you just turn your back on your family like that? Like, how dare you? Like, that is so wrong. And, like, I'm here to tell you guys, it's not. There's nothing wrong with that. If there's toxicity in your life and it's coming from your own family, like, and it's not healthy for you, you need to do something about it. And if they're not willing to change their behavior, you've got to change something. And it was so hard for me to make that choice to cut them out. I kept wishing that, they would see the light and they would want to try to connect with me. And that never happened. And at this point, if it did happen, I don't want anything to do with them because my life has just gotten so much better without their bullshit. So yeah, there's a lot of other stuff that goes along with that too, like feeling like, oh, you're orphaned, like you don't have, like, all my family is just, they're not there for me no more. But so many years have gone by that at this point, it's whatever. I am happy. I have become a better person. I have worked through my crap. I'm still working on improving myself. So, like, I don't know if I should say this. I just feel like I'm becoming a better human than they are. Like, I feel very grateful that I have this gift of awareness. And I do feel bad that, like, they don't. I mean, if they did, I'm sure somebody would have contacted me. But, like, they don't. They just don't have awareness. And I do. And if that moment in the kayaks didn't happen, like, would I have had a moment like that? Like, where would I be right now? I don't know. But I definitely feel that, like, if I still had a relationship with my parents and I told them that, like, hey, I realized that I'm autistic, that would not have gone over well because, like, I can guarantee that my mother at the very least would, like, personalize that, like, you're not autistic, like, because it would have something to do with her or something. And believe me, I thought, like, is my mother autistic? Like, is anybody in my family autistic? And my conclusion is, no, my mother's just a fucking bitch. Like, she's just a fucking bitch. Sorry for all the swearing. But yeah, so that's kind of what it was like growing up with my family. And, like, at this point, my family is my wife. And she's giving me, like, she's given me everything I haven't had that I didn't have when I was growing up. Like, I should save that for like another episode, because now I'm just like starting to talk in circles. And anyways, I hope that like this helped somebody. I hope I wasn't all over the place. But I guess like the point is, if you have done the same thing, like if you've cut your parents off, or if like you're in an unhealthy relationship with them, and there's nothing wrong with letting them know, this is how I feel, this is what needs to happen before we can continue our relationship. You know what I mean? Like, set boundaries, and if they don't like the boundaries, that's their problem, that's not yours. And if you decide that like it's just too much and you want them out of your life, it is very hard. Like, it was easy for me to do, but it was hard for me to accept, if that makes any sense. Because I felt guilty about what I did. Like, there's all these different thoughts and feelings that just like I had to deal with for the longest time. But I know I made a good decision for myself, because like I feel like a better person without them in my life. I got therapy because of everything that had happened. I understand a lot more about the dynamics of like how like my family was when I was growing up, my role in it. Like, I don't know. Just, if they're not good for you, get them out of your life. It doesn't matter if they're your family, if they're people that you met like 2 years ago. If people aren't treating you like you deserve to be treated, they don't fucking deserve a place in your life. And that's what I think. But anyways, thanks for listening. This was just me recording into an app on my phone, hoping people find me and listen and relate. Hopefully have a similar experience to the one that I did when I heard myself on somebody else's podcast for the first time. Thank you. Goodbye.